Welcome back to the Florida Band Podcast, everyone. You know why you're here. I'm Christian Gordon, band director at Westglades Middle School in Parkland, Florida.
I'm Andrew Lopez, band director at Coniston Middle School in West Palm Beach.
And I'm AJ Arcia, band director at Coral Springs Middle School in Coral Springs, Florida.
And we have a guest today. Another one.
Another one.
Another one.
Everybody say hello to Mr. Evan Rogovin, the band director at Dreyfus School of the Arts in West Palm Beach.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Evan.
Hello, everybody. How you guys doing?
We're good, man.
Hi, Evan.
Good to speak to you all.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
We've been trying to get you on for a while, and we're super glad we could finally make it happen.
I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
We're nearing the end of our season. I think we've got probably one more episode to record after this, right, guys?
Yeah, well, we have June 2nd, and I'm actually trying to get Dr. Jim Drayton, our oboe clinician, on.
Oh, nice.
He's been wanting to get on for several months, but he hasn't been ready because he's got some project he wants to reveal on the show. So,
wow.
But I'm waiting for him to confirm on June 2nd.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're nearing the end, and we figured we'd save one of the better interviews for the final interviews. We've got Evan.
Because Evan is better than Larry.
Oh, God.
He is.
Please don't start something. I already heard that you all were trying to get Larry to spill the goods on me, his podcast. So I know your game.
It was his idea. He was just like, because he was like, hey man, like I could talk about tips from an old guy or just talk trash about Evan for an hour. I was like, what?
Yeah, he chickened out though when he got on the mic.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
Absolutely. So our main thing that we want to talk to Evan, for those who don't know, Evan was able to, with his Dreyfus students in his community, bring them to Midwest this past year. And so kind of the main target of questions and kind of how we want to pick Evan's brain today is just kind of his preparation cycle and what went into it, different things that went well, how he picked his guests and so on. But before we do that, Evan, do you mind just kind of running over your background, brief career history, kind of things?
Sure. How far back do you want me to go? Just work history.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, so my first job was in 1994. I was the director of bands at Santa Lucia's Community High School for 16 years, and then in 2010, I took over at Dreyfus School of the Arts, and that's where I am now. Yeah. That's a
very short resume.
Well, I mean, I can go deeper if you want, and the accomplishments of particularly at Santa Lucia's, if you want to go there.
Sure, go for it.
All right. Well, at Santa Lucia's, we were FMBC Class 4A state champions 3 times. We were runner-up 2 times in 4A, 1 time in 3A, so that's pretty cool. And our winter guard were the 2003 WGI World Champions. We did a lot of great things, as numerous South Florida Winter Guard Association championships, numerous WGI finalist berths in the Scholastic Open class. So, in my 16 years at Santa Lucia's, we were able to take a band that had about 40 kids, didn't even have a color guard program at the time, and build something that was pretty special in that time. So we were really proud of it. And then I got the job at Dreyfus, and the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah.
But
that's so cool though, because it's a lot of times, because I mean, how long have you been teaching? Not to put you on the spot with that question.
I just finishing up 29 years.
Right. Which is remarkable in itself. And mazel tov.
It flies by. I'm going to tell you guys, you're going to turn around and it's going to be gone. I'm telling you.
I mean, I believe it. Christian and I have almost been, you and I have almost been teaching for a decade already.
Right? See how it works?
Almost, yeah.
It's freaky. It's so wild. But no, it's really cool seeing how your resume is really, really short, but that also goes to, your ability to build where you are and craft your environment in a way that suits you for longevity.
Yeah,
well, I mean, it's
an interesting story is I actually applied to be Wayne Miller's assistant at Dreyfus in about 2000, about my 7th year at Santa Lucia's. I applied at the end of the year because he was looking for an assistant, but there was a job freeze in the county. and I went out on the road with the Crossmen. I was on tour, and it was near the end of the tour. We were up in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I got a phone call from Wayne. This was near the beginning of the school year, saying that the job was open and it was mine for the taking. And I actually turned it down because we had just finished Santa Lucis band camp, and I couldn't leave those kids at that late stage. But it's kind of funny how everything just kind of worked out in the long run with that situation.
Yeah, because I mean, you got to Dreyfus, I think, like what, 2010?
2010. And then if I left for that job in 2000, we wouldn't have been able to accomplish all those things at Santa Lucis that we accomplished, and I probably wouldn't have grown as much as an educator. So I think it all worked out for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and like you said, it was just kind of kismet how you ended up there.
Yeah.
10 years later.
Yeah.
But I dig it, man. So in regards to your Midwest preparation,
Right.
we have a series of questions, and you can dive in as much as you want per
Sure.
question. Like, don't feel the need to kind of brush over anything. Can you? Because I remember, and I talked. I think Marissa and I talked to you about this when we were at Midwest, when the three of us were stranded on the couch trying to figure out how we're trying to get home.
Right.
Like, can you kind of talk to the trial and error of prepping to submit a recording while still emerging from COVID, in addition to what inspired you to just kind of make the move?
Right. So we didn't start submitting for Midwest till recently. I think the first time we submitted was right before the pandemic, was in 2019. And, you know, I did a lot of research, called a lot of my friends in Texas and try to figure out what they did. And what a lot of schools will do is they will, you know, set up recording sessions, set up a hall, book a very good recording company, and, you know, spend time, you know, recording their selections and then choosing, you know, the best rep, because you can't edit your recording once it's done. But because of our schedule at Dreyfus and our kids being involved in so many different things with orchestra and jazz, all I could do every year was submit our live MPA recording. We didn't really have any special recording sessions. So it was kind of like a crapshoot. You know, if we had a good run on the stage or I programmed a good program, it probably had a lot to do with it. So the first couple times we didn't get accepted. And then I talked to Alex Kaminsky and said, hey, I'm getting ready to submit again. This is a really good band. Are there any pieces you recommend? And he had told me that, you know, a couple times when he was at Florida, both with Buchholz and with Stoneman, or perhaps it was Lincoln. It's kind of crazy. He's been to Midwest with all those schools.
I know, right?
It's crazy. He told me that Tritico was a piece that always got him in. So I programmed Tritico and MPA in 2022. And they played it really well, and we got in. And ironically, Aaron Snipes called me and asked, what did you program? I said, look, Alex told me to program Tritico. Aaron programmed Tritico. He got it to Midwest. So I'm not saying that Tritico is the salve for all the, you know, anybody who wants to get in, but that's kind of a funny story.
Alex says also symphonic movement is a good one. So
yeah, the
anything Nelly Bell really.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
They, for some reason. But anyway, so we didn't do any long-term recording sessions. I just submitted every year our MPA recordings, and I was pretty confident after 2022. I was confident after 2021, and I thought we would get in, and I was really bummed we didn't. I went back and listened to that about a year ago, and I'm like, oh, I know why we didn't get in. So, you know, sometimes, you know, that just kind of speaks to what I tell a lot of directors after an MPA. If they're not happy with the rating, if they're disappointed, you know, don't listen to the recording. Wait till you're emotionally separated from it. Listen to it a month later, and it'll probably reveal itself to you. Anyways, I'm going on a tangent. So
That's good.
So, so for us, the recording process was just simply submitting our MPA recordings. When we got accepted, it was pretty cool.
That's even, yeah, that's got to, like, did you, Did you tell the kids that when it happened, or like, did you go into the explanation of like how it typically goes, or was it just kind of like, hey, we did it?
Yeah, that was something I regret. I looking back on it, a lot of groups will have a big reveal and they'll film it, and the kids will go crazy. And I was so excited, I screamed in my office, and a kid heard me talking to De Leon, and I think the word kind of got out before I got to tell him. So, if I ever do it again, which is a big if, I definitely would make the reveal a lot more fun for the children. But they were really excited, of course, when they found out.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge deal because were you the first from Palm Beach County?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and because I remember when
very
it happened,
cool.
everyone was like, holy cow. And what are you, number 8 in Florida?
In the last 20 years, according to Alex, eight bands and 6 directors, because he was director of several of those 8 bands. Yeah.
Half of them, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah.
Dude's like he's like the Bill Russell of Midwest.
Yeah, and honestly, Wayne tried. Wayne and I talked about it, and he was bummed when they didn't get accepted back when he auditioned. And so I kind of, as soon as I found out he was the first one, I messaged. He was really happy for the school and the program.
Sure. So when did you, like, when do they, I don't know, when did they
April.
announce the acceptances? April? Okay.
Yeah. So they
you
already
found
announced,
out well before.
Yeah, they already
school
announced
year's
next
over.
year. So that you find out in April, and then the music selection process begins.
And that segues into the next question, like, how long does it take to create that concert program?
Right. So it's interesting because they have a reservation system online, and people put in their pieces. And of course, if people put in multiple pieces, it's time stamped, so you get put on a waiting list. But the first thing that happens is you start getting emails from composers all over the place, and samples. And I got snail mail of scores and parts, and so there's a lot of people wanting you to, of course, rightfully so, premiere their music, because Midwest emphasizes newer music pretty much in your selection, your criteria. There's a rigorous process where there are rules, like for every grade 4, 5, and 6 you play, you have to play a grade 1, 2, and 3. Of course, they have their Warhorse list. For example, when we did the Variations on America by Ives, that was one of the things on their standard rep list. So that doesn't count against your other graded material. So there's a whole lot of things to navigate. Of course, the length of your program is the biggest challenge, because as you're building a program, there's so many good pieces you want to play, but then you have to remember that you're pretty much limited to 45 minutes of music max for an hour total performance. And then the hard part is paring it down, making sure you have a good mix of new, old, and you like the program and is a good variety of grades, and that you program it so that it's an interesting journey for the listener. So there's so many things that come into play, and I was selecting music right up to the deadline to finalize your program, which is in early fall in the school year. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the board of directors looks at your program. It has to get approved, and it's an interesting process.
So what, because I remember talking to you, like I was like us and Ryan and
Right.
Marissa, we're talking about it right after your performance, but like, what was your inspiration? What, for the pieces that you chose, like,
Yeah.
why did you choose what?
Well, I tried to keep it Florida centric. So my first goal was to reach out to friends like Sheldon Williams, who arranged the Florence Price, or former students like Ben Horn, who arranged Deep River, who I taught at Teal Sound, another Florida. So I wanted to, not say feature people from Florida, but I wanted to make our selections and the composers, very South Florida or Florida centric. And I also wanted to play music that reflected not just, well, they kind of make you play a variety of diverse composers, but I really made a conscious effort to have as many diverse composers as I could on this program, while still trying to make it kind of a Florida vibe, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, I remember because you chose the Men of Florida March, right?
Right.
And
And interestingly enough, I was going to do Hands Across the Sea because that's like my all-time favorite. And when I just was watching, I stumbled on an old Gator Band video online, and we always did Men of Florida at pregame right before the national anthem, and I'm like, nobody plays this march. It's Fillmore. Why don't we do this? So that kind of how that happened.
right. Yeah, and I mean it's great because these questions are all kind of segueing into each other because it's once you created your program and you kind of knew what pieces you wanted to play.
Right.
Did you also know early on who you wanted to bring in? Because you brought in Dr. Chipman, you brought in Dr. Waybright.
Well, our guest conductors were Carnahan, Waybright, and Kyle Prescott. And
That's right. I'm sorry.
yeah, and those three were in our band room a lot over the last few years. And so I thought it appropriate that they were conducting. Of course, I asked De Leon to do a piece. And I have one regret, and I've told her this, is, looking back on it, I should have had Jamie Groves conduct a piece. I really regret that. And she's okay with it. But if I could go back in time, I would probably do that. But they limit the amount of guests you can have on the stage, too.
Sure.
And then there was the Forrest Sontag component. Having an alumnus play a piece with us was something I was determined to do as well.
Right, because there were a lot of. I mean, I don't know if it's. I've only been to the Midwest a couple of times. Is it normal to always feature some sort of concerto-esque piece?
Yeah,
with, like,
a lot of
soloist?
bands will have a guest soloist or conductor. Yeah, I think that's a commonplace thing. And we're fortunate at Dreyfus to have some outstanding alumnus. Not only Forrest, but the Landris Bryant tuba alumnus is tuba in the President's Own. So somebody asked, why didn't I ask him? And I said, well, Forrest's dad was the original band director, opened the school, so I thought it was only appropriate that we asked Forrest first.
Right. No, and it was a great concert. I mean, like,
Thank you.
Yeah, we loved it. When you were bringing your guests in, when you were bringing Dr. Carnahan, Dr. Prescott, and Dr. Waybright, did they have say in what pieces to pick, or did you pick the pieces and then give it to
No, sorry. As a matter of fact, actually, the Paul Dooley, the Red, Yellow, Blue, Waybright recommended the piece. So I guess in a way he picked it because I told him that he was going to be conducting it because that piece stressed me out the most. I wanted to do the Ives. I've always wanted to do the Ives, so that was kind of always going to be mine. But I pretty much picked the pieces they would conduct.
Okay. I dig it.
I assigned it.
And then it's like, you will play this, but I don't want it. You will play this. And then, so as you're preparing for it, you've got your guests, you've got your program, you've submitted it, it's board approved. What makes, and this is kind of a loaded question. You feel free to dive in. What makes the Midwest prep schedule in terms of like your pacing of the rehearsals and things like that? And your timeline for how you're prepping X and Y.
Right.
How does that make that different from other conference appearances or exhibition concerts?
Right. So we've done some other things, like we played at the President's Concert before. We played at CBDNA, Southern Division. Those are shorter programs, 5-6 pieces max. I think at FMEA we did 4. In Tampa for CBDNA we did 4 or 5. This concert was 10 pieces. I've never conducted a concert with more than 5 or 6 ever for one band, right? We do concerts with, we have both our bands on stage. We're doing a lot of music, but in terms of one program being that long, so the positive is we had all fall to get it together. Don't have a marching band, right? Don't have to worry about football games and things that other schools have to worry about while preparing for Midwest. But I think the pacing of the year, trying to get through all that literature and not let it get stale, trying to make sure you're peaking at the right moment so that when you get to Chicago in December, that you're playing, you're on all cylinders, was the biggest challenge. And, we, of course, through that, we did have our own issues like Prism concerts, juries, things that we had to do on top of that. So one of the things I did based on talking to other directors is the first concert I programmed a lot of the grade 3s and 2s. And in the second concert of our school year, we did some of the harder pieces. So we had played them on stage already before we flew up to Chicago. And then we did a send-off concert a few days before we left.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and that actually, you answered that next question because it was about the idea of like, how do you balance preparing? You have to do a fall concert, a Prism concert. How do you balance that prep?
And we don't do after-school rehearsals. Now, for Midwest, we did almost every Thursday, and that's unique for our school because, as you may know, our kids come from as far south as Boca, as far north as Hope Sound. They live out in the Glades, Wellington. So it's hard to do after-school stuff, but we did do Thursday after schools when we could. But basically, we were limited to our regular class time twice a week or 3 times a week, depending on the block. So that was still the challenge. Is we didn't do any weekend camps for the most part. We didn't do anything extra because we just can't at our school. But yeah, the pacing of it was the most stressful thing, and just I didn't think we would ever get Cafecito ready because we started that late. But I think it all worked out.
Yeah, I mean, and it was the kind of thing. Just watching the rigor of especially some of those 4s, 5s, and 6s that you picked, it was definitely a grind. Are there moments that you can recall on in the fall when you guys were preparing of like either like, oh my God, we have this, or like was there like a rehearsal that you specifically remember like, oh Jesus Christ, like, what do we do?
I never had a panic attack in my life till last fall. I remember I was walking my dog, Bella, and we had a terrible rehearsal that day, and it was probably around late September, early October, and I just started freaking out. Like, we're not going to be ready. I wanted to like collapse on the ground there. I'd never experienced anything like it, so I went inside and opened a glass, poured a glass of wine, and I just took a deep breath, and I said, we'll be fine, calm down, relax. It's not your career, just a career-defining moment, LOL. But anyways, yeah, it was pretty, I had some worries at first, but I think the moment I calmed down, we did a full run of the program, I want to say a few weeks before we left in class, all 10 pieces. And they did okay, and I said, I think we're going to be okay. That's when I kind of realized we're going to be just fine.
Right.
Who do you reach out to or lean on in moments like that?
Well, John Rodriguez, my dear friend, the band director of Palm Beach Gardens, is someone I always vented to, and Dad, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Or
don't worry about it.
It doesn't matter.
Vented to. In the past, I would have called Jeff Bridges. He would have been the one he probably would have been so tired of me last fall. Sure. I would have burned his phone. And, of course, there were days I was driving home. And I was like, the first thought is like, I want to call Jeff. But, Jeff passed a couple summers ago. So really, that and my colleagues like De Leon, especially because, being from Tarpon, he probably understood the stress I was under at my school more than anyone else in our school. So he helped a lot. And, of course, Waybright was a good sounding board.
Sure. And how often did you ever, because it happens a lot, like I follow Phil Lobato because he's from Orlando.
Yeah.
And then, also we all follow Aaron.
Yeah.
Are there any moments, like how often were you able to either via Skype or personally bring in composers?
Oh, so we brought in Michael J. Miller on Skype. He did that Yellow, Red, Blue. We had Paul, some of the composers obviously in person at the Midwest rehearsal, like Paul Dooley and Sheldon Williams. We did on Skype, and he was there at Midwest. Let's see. Obviously, some of the composers aren't alive, so we couldn't get everybody. But Carol Britton Chambers, we couldn't get her on Skype, but her and I contacted frequently. Randall Standridge came to the concert, so it was really cool interacting with them throughout the fall. In the future, if I do it again, I would plan more of that earlier, even if the pieces aren't quite ready.
What did they have in terms of it? I mean, like, obviously, it's how did you premiere any pieces?
Yes, so we were premiered. Well, I wouldn't say we premiered the Adoration, or so no. I guess none of those were true premieres. But I'm pretty sure, like Michael Miller's Grade 2, the Big Bad and Blue, excuse me, that improv blues-based piece was probably like a premiere, I would guess, for on a national stage.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sure. And then because it was a premiere, how often did you consult him, or how often?
I think we did twice, and then Kyle changed some things, added some backgrounds, and he was very receptive to that in the process of it. So we actually changed it a little bit. Kyle did. And I remember Kyle coming to rehearsal, and Kyle just, God bless him, he just does, hey, I hear this, I hear that, and he tries it, and it worked. And then I had to reach out to Michael, hey, I'm just letting you know we added some backgrounds. He was like, cool, go for it.
Yeah. And he's from Florida. Where's he from again? Mike Miller, I remember.
I want to say...
He's from the West Coast.
He was in the Tampa area, because I remember I judged at his school, and now I can't remember.
He only left recently.
Yeah, well, it's been a few years now. Now he's, writing for the Colts and on the Colts staff and doing really good work as a composer and arranger.
Right.
But I forget the Tampa area school he was at. I know I judged on that campus for FMBC, and he was a host, but I just can't remember exactly where.
No, then that sounds like a really, really enriching experience for the kids, too. Just being able to be in contact with that many creators, and it's especially, with the type of kids that we're dealing with now, where getting them so immersed in such a personal and interpersonal experience, I'm sure is really special.
It was great for them. I will say, Dreyfus kids are unique in some respects, so I don't think they understood the magnitude of this as much as I wanted them to early on. So I remember in my Google Classroom, I had put up some recordings of Phil Obato's group from one of their concerts early in the fall, because they sounded really good. And I'm saying, this is a group that's going to be going to Midwest. So any little way I can motivate them, or put up some other, Stoneman Douglas Midwest recordings. It's like, guys, these are the level of the groups there. So trying to get them to understand, it's not like at Heritage Festival or World Strides Festival, where, it's a little bit different.
Sure, absolutely. If you, in terms of the trip itself, and in terms of planning, what goes into that? And it's a regular field trip, know, outside of the county, but because it's a Midwest and because they have regulation on X and Y, was there anything different that you had to plan for normal?
No, it wasn't any different. Whether it's marching arts or concert arts or whatever you want to call it, you still want to book a rehearsal space. You still need transportation, all that. It was very similar to all the marching band trips I took, or other trips I took with Dreyfus, whether it was to Chicago, Nashville, or Tampa, or whatever. The thing that you have to make sure is just, you only get one rehearsal block. If there are more, you're lucky. So you have to find outside rehearsal venues if you want more than one rehearsal, generally, or you don't want a 10 p.m. second slot. So fortunately, Alex was kind enough to get us a space at Vandercook. So the day after we arrived, we did a couple and a half, 3 hours at Vandercook just to get our bearings, ran through everything. Not our greatest rehearsal, but, then we had the rehearsal in the ballroom the next night. And I got to say that was probably better than our performance. That was actually my favorite time of the trip, was that rehearsal where the composers were there and all these Midwest people were there and all these people who I look up to, Rodney Dorsey and Alex and all these incredible educators were in the room. And I got to tell you, I wish some of the people heard the band then, because that was to me my favorite moment, actually, more so than the concert. Now, the other thing about the concert that was scary is they put you on risers, right? Now, how many of us have risers anymore in our band room? Like the old band rooms in Florida, all of them were tiered.
Yeah.
So, we did tape out the stage on our band room carpet, with painter's tape, the exact dimensions, so we knew how to set up.
Oh, cool.
But, I already told Aaron at Braswell, I said, dude, if you can set up risers in your band room, because when we got to sound check, it kind of freaked us out a little bit till we got comfortable. It's a different listening environment for the conductor, for the kids. The stage itself was not good. Like the students on this, stage left said it was very hard to hear, stage right, etc. So the acoustics of the hall were something that I wish I had planned more for leading up to it.
Sure.
Sounds like
Was
you'll
there-
just have to go again.
Yeah. Well, you got to wait 4 years. And I'm closer to retirement. So we'll see. We'll see if I want to put
Okay.
myself through that process. But, obviously, if I'm around and I should be around still teaching in 4 years, I would probably submit again. I would want to go again. Sure. Why not?
Nice. That'd be a really cool way to end it all too.
It really would. But, the sad part was the blizzard. And, the disappointing part, I think, when you look back is, we didn't have a full house. I think, those kids really would have been even more on fire for if that place was packed. A lot of people left by the time we hit the stage. You were there. It was still a nice crowd, but it wasn't what, I had billed to them. I said, oh, there's going to be thousands of people, so that was a little bit, I don't want to say disappointing, but it's like, man, I wish that storm didn't happen and this place would have been, full from top to bottom.
A lot of people missed what a lot of us were like. That was the performance of the.
I appreciate
it.
that.
It was so musical, man. Like, cause I know myself and Marissa and Ryan, and I think Amrutha had listened to almost every single group, and there were a couple groups where people who will not be named were walking out on bands that will not be named because it wasn't what they were expecting. But like I remember just watching you guys do the sound check. I was like, holy crap, this is going to be good. Like, and
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
In my opinion, in my opinion, I think it was probably one of the more musical.
Thank you.
Of the performances, because different bands prepare themselves different ways, and different composers and conductors have different priorities. But yours has always been on musicality. I remember you were saying you picked music that had melody.
Well, yeah, I'm a melody guy. Not that I don't like, dissonance, discord, storm and drang sometimes. I've done that with marching band and all that. But, I want to come away from a concert humming a tune. If I'm humming a tune, if I go to a friend's band concert and I go away humming one of their songs, I think they've done a great job programming.
Yeah.
That's just how I roll. Not everybody's that way, and I get it. But I've always just been, melody centric.
Sure. So, in regards to your favorite moments from the trip, you were saying definitely your favorite moment was the rehearsal.
Yes.
What about the rehearsal kind of sparked that fire? And like, I'm assuming, and you were saying earlier that the kids felt it too, and the room just kind of came alive. What about it made it special?
The kids, like most kids, like in any group like that, they want to perform. They like to be. They like the attention, and I think seeing all those composers and all these big wigs and everybody in suits in that room, kind of, they knew it was time to go. I mean, Wayne used to joke with me, wait for the Dreyfus push. I used to call him early in my Dreyfus career, like they're not ready, they're not practicing. He said, just wait till the week of the concert. And then all of a sudden, they would put on their super suits. Not that I'm a fan of this concept, because I totally disregard it. It goes against everything we've taught as educators, right?
Yeah.
But they are uniquely fit. When the lights come on, they generally do a great job. And I think we had a great breakfast. We took them out of the hotel. We went to a buffet. We had a private breakfast at the Hard Rock. They opened up. They had great. We had a good morning. It was not rushed. We got into that ballroom, and everything just clicked. Everything sounded great. All the conductors were doing a great job, and it reminded me of like when you take your marching band to that last weekend at FMBC, and you have a chance to win, and people are at your rehearsal, and your kids are just focused on the moment because they know what's at stake. I think that when they were in that ballroom, finally, the day before concert, they understood what was at stake. If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And they just kind of came alive.
They were more focused than I've ever had a Dreyfus band in my life. Was that hour in that ballroom?
You hear that, kids?
You're right.
No, that's such a special time, and I'm sure like band directors all the time. We all combat the super suit moment, like it happens.
Yes.
It happens at MPA. It happens for the spring concert, and it's like, can you not, please?
Yeah. And then we're happy because they did better than we thought. But then we got home and like we get back to school. It's like, good job, but it could have been fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm. It was particularly bad with this batch of students this year, at least at the middle school level. We've had conversations about that.
I think we're all feeling it. Of the underclass, I mean, our freshmen, I mean, they're good kids, but I will just say that being at home for so long has hurt their development. Mm-hmm. Socially, absolutely. How to be on a team, how to be team players. They're very individually focused.
Our kids were on teams every day.
Oh, yeah. Microsoft Teams.
Exactly. Oh, God. No, I believe it. And that's why I feel like, this past Midwest was so special because it was a chance for so many kids across the country to just kind of relearn what it means to live in the moment, and what makes our craft so special is we get to share it with the audience in real time. And I'm sure, I remember looking on stage after everything was done, and you were crying, Dylan was crying, and your kids are crying. And I'm like, that's kids, man. Like,
I remember there was a moment, and I credit Michelle Fernandez for this because, she was very supportive throughout the whole process, and so we're very good friends. We went to UF together. We've been great friends for decades. She told me, before you start your program, scan the stage, look at every kid, and thank them. And I'm so glad she told me to do that because I'm the kind of guy that just gets up there and starts. And right. I did. I stood up there and I scanned left to right, right to left, and I just mouthed thank you many times. And they started tearing up. I started tearing up. And I'm so glad she told me to do that. And I remembered to do that because I'll never forget that moment either. But what were we talking about?
No, just like it was just discussing just the emotional, like the exuberance,
and then the fact that was our first travel in 5 years. The last time I had taken a band trip was Dreyfus. We went to Nashville in 2018
for CBDNA, right?
No, that was just one of those World Stride Festival of Gold things.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you were talking to Marissa about that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, and again, like it's such a great way to do it. Now, it was sad because it really was sad because the blizzard cost your band what could have been like one hell of an audience.
Yeah.
But like, do explain the saga of your survival posts and like how you guys made it through the blizzard.
Well, we were all excited because we thought we would see snow, and when we were getting ready to leave, like a week before, I pulled up my phone. Now, nowhere was it saying there was going to be a blizzard, just supposed to be some snow. And then, obviously, we get there, and here comes the storm. So I am you're not going to believe this. You're going to laugh out loud. But I really am an internal optimist in situations like that. Not with my sports teams. No. By the way, go Heat, go Panthers.
Yo, Jimmy Buckets. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
But I remember the parents were coming up to me. What happens? What's going to happen if we can't get out? I'm like, listen, we're going to get out. We'll be fine. So we get up the next morning, the day we're supposed to leave. We're supposed to. I think the bus is supposed to get to the hotel at 10:30 a.m. We start loading up. We leave for Midway at noon, and my chaperone knocks on my door at 9 something. And says the flights are canceled, and my heart dropped. It just sank. I'm like, because I swear, I'm like, oh God, because I'm like, okay, it's 2 days before Christmas. I have kids that need to get home to their families. I'm like, what do we do? So obviously, I had some great parents, Jennifer Ravashier and Kara Hagan, my two great moms at home, working with Southwest, working with the phones. So I didn't have to really deal with the logistics there. We just had to keep the kids and chaperones calm and informed. So my lead chaperones went to the front desk. Fortunately, the hotel was only at 18% capacity for the holiday weekend. So we extended our night, our stay by 1 day, put it on a parent's credit card. They honored the Midwest rate for another night. They didn't have to. So we still got the discounted rate. I called the bus company. They were going to be there anyways, so we had them, instead of taking us to the airport, we did a Target run, and we had the kids stock up on snacks and whatever else, games, whatever they needed. Fortunately, the hotel kept their marketplace open, so guests who were stuck could buy sandwiches, snacks, etc. So we were fine. I'm glad we didn't get to the airport and it happened, because we would have been stranded at the airport for 2 days. So it worked out great. And then Southwest was able to rebook us all on the same flight the next day. And we got to Midway the next day. They're canceling flights left and right. Ours is still on the board. And we get to the gate, and we're about to board, and it's too windy to de-ice the plane, so they stop all flights. And so I'm just freaking out because I just want to get home. And I'll never forget. So they had a food court right by the gate. And so I asked the gate agent, okay, how long is this ground stop going to be? They said, sometimes it could take 45 minutes an hour. I said, okay. So we let the kids go get food. And I found a sushi bar. So I may have had a sake to calm my nerves, away from the children. And 5 minutes after I sit down, I get a text, we're boarding. So we are running through this
Oh my God.
this snack bar area, this food court, telling kids, get back to the gate. They're like, we didn't get our food. I said, it doesn't matter. Go. We got to get out of here. And we're grabbing kids left and right. Go, go, go. And we got on and we got out. Thank God. And it was like one of the few Southwest flights that got out that day. Somehow we got.
Right.
It was a miracle, and it was really because our plane was coming from Texas, and it was going direct from Chicago down to Fort Lauderdale, and not going to the Northeast somewhere for another stop. So we got really lucky with how that all worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I think, guys, what concert was it that we were? Was it Air? Oh, it was Airmen of Note, where it was us and Kaylin and Marissa, and like AJ was trying to make sure that he was trying to figure out.
Yeah, I
how
had to
get
leave
home.
early. It was
Yeah.
at that point. I think what was it? Tuesday evening, Wednesday? No, it was Tuesday. Yeah, we were just. I was freaking out because I knew that was going to be like one of the last flights out.
And I remember that it was so funny. Christian and I both dissociated simultaneously as Marissa and Kaylin were like, "We got to figure out how we're gonna do this," and we were just like, "We just give up." Like,
Yeah.
Well,
it was just like watching the hopelessness.
fortunately, none of us had to deal with what Monica and Jose had to deal with.
What was that again? I forgot.
Oh, they were there for like 4 or 5 days.
Oh yeah, and Alondra and her mom were there too.
Yeah. So
A lot of people were there a long time. Some people had to take buses back.
Yeah,
We were debating it.
Things like that.
We actually looked into it. I almost did that. Now, De Leon drove home because he had to get home for a family trip. They were going to go. It was Christmas break. and so he just rented the car. I said, dude, just go. We got this.
Yeah.
So,
And
but it
was
worked
nuts.
out. I mean, the kids
Sure.
got to play in the snow. It actually was another day that actually they got to experience they never got to experience, you know. So they really enjoyed it. You know, I was ready to get home, but we made the best of it.
Yeah.
As a matter
absolutely.
of fact, there was a mom in a room giving mani-pedis or pedicures, and I actually got one. It was quite nice.
They're good, man.
Sorry,
People sleep on
manicure, not a pedicure.
people sleep on pedicures though. Like that stuff feels great.
No, it feels good.
Absolutely.
And it's good for your feet.
Absolutely.
100%. Oh yeah. If you could do, I got two more questions for you.
Yeah.
I guess three. If you could do anything differently in how you prepped
Right.
or how you lived the experience, what would you do?
Right. So I already told you I would have asked Jamie to guest conduct.
Right.
I would have tried to pick my program sooner, like get it finalized in the summer. So I didn't have any loose ends at the first few weeks of school because I had still had a couple pieces I was going back and forth on. I would also send out the music to the students, all of it in the summer. We waited to the fall, other than the Charles Ives, which we had started reading the last week of school, just for something to do.
Right.
So I would have gotten an earlier start with getting them music in their hands. Would have made my early part of the fall a lot less stressful.
Sure. I mean it. And I was going to ask that, like, 'cause I don't know how typically, like, you know, most band directors might finish their prep in the summer. It's just
Right.
a matter of getting the music out.
And-
yeah, I get that.
And I would have found a way to fly in more of the composers instead of doing online things. Of course, that costs money, but I would make sure that would be a component next time if there is a next time.
Sure. And I mean, again, that's a great thing to do because it's like, you know, you become so reliant on the technology portion of the communication, but like that experience maybe it would have made it more real sooner or anything like that. Just like the gravity of the situation
Yeah,
and the opportunity.
the opportunity for sure.
Yeah. Any advice for when preparing for trips like that? Like specifically a Midwest or like a CBD&A, but mainly because Midwest is so different in terms of how it's programmed. But
Over program. It's my biggest problem. Even when I do honor bands, I just did an honor band in Hillsborough County, and once again I over program. And know the strengths and weaknesses of your ensemble when you program.
okay, makes it easy. Other than any potentially going to Midwest one more time,
Yeah.
do you have anything cooking for?
Well,
the last
actually,
couple of years
we
teaching?
are going to France in a year.
That's right.
And that's a summer trip. We were invited to perform, and I can't say it very well, at a festival in St. Croix, Valmer, where they have every year. And actually, we're going with Harrison School of the Arts with Rob Lambert's group. We're going to travel with
neat.
them. And it's, strictly optional. I think we have about 60 kids going. And we're going to get together a week before we fly over there and put a band together. And it's just all pops, all light music, put a jazz combo together. And we're going to do 12 days in France in 2024.
That's gonna be so freaking cool.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I've never done an overseas trip with a school.
That's definitely a feather in the cap.
Yeah.
Guys, do you have any other questions that you've been thinking of or anything cooking?
What sparked you wanting to apply to Midwest and perform there?
Well, that's a good question. I think that there's always an ego component to whatever we do as band directors. I guess, I've never had a concrete plan of where I wanted to go with my groups. When I was at Santa Lucis and I inherited a very small band, all I knew that at the time, John I. Leonard was the best band at the time in our county and one of the best in South Florida in the mid-'90s, if you recall. All I knew is I wanted to be be like them. So, having those philosophical discussions with people like Jeff Bridges and Tim Lee and the great staff that I had, Ron Coleman and all those guys, about how we move our program forward. Always that what's the next step for prominence or relevance for whatever group I'm in front of. So for Dreyfus, we started small, those World Stride things, and then I applied for the President's Concert at FMEA, and we played at that, and then did the CBDNA, and we played at that. So I think the next obvious step was Midwest, and Dreyfus had never performed at Midwest, so I think that, to me, that was the one thing missing on the Dreyfus Band resume, was that signature kind of performance. So what drives me is, what's that next big thing that we haven't done, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
So what's bigger than Midwest? I'm sure there's something out there.
I guess it's France.
And obviously, just trying to elevate the program, and more importantly, trying to let people in the rest of the country hear them, because, up until that point, we were pretty regional in our travels.
What advice do you have for band directors out there, particularly the younger generation of directors?
Well, that's a real open question. I think
Maybe pick like your top 2 or 3.
okay.
Yeah.
No matter how much time you have to devote to other things, you have to do score study. You have to do it. So do it.
And why?
So the pieces inside and out, so you can conduct the music rather than worry about what's going on inside your own head, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I mean, you got to really, you got to know it all, to the point where, I try to have everything memorized when I go on stage. I mean, I use scores as a crutch, but, when I study scores, I'm more of an audio learner. So I actually gather more listening to the tunes in my car when I'm driving to work than looking at the score. I hear a triangle cue or something more than I see it. But mixing, studying the audio and studying the score, you have to do that. Second piece of advice for young band directors: don't let the job consume you. Yeah. Because it's very easy for us to work 24 hours, 7 days a week on band if we let it, and it can drive us crazy. I know that's hard to follow, especially when you're taking over a new program and you have a lot of work to do, but you got to take care of yourself. Mental health is real. And I guess remember that each kid is different, and what happens at home we have no insight into, and sometimes when we have an issue with a kid, it could be more than what we think. And so just making sure you take the entire human being into context with each child, it's a hard thing to do, but it's important, I think.
What are some ways that you're able to do that?
I think just getting to know them. I just recently had a conversation with a senior, and I was sitting there, and I'm like, I think this is the longest conversation we've ever had in 4 years, and I regretted it. And I think we have those moments where we do have kids that are very outgoing and will talk to us every day, but finding those kids that maybe who haven't I had a conversation with in 2 weeks, and just saying hi and seeing how they're doing and seeing what's going on, you'll find that they open up to you or give you context clues if you're listening. But I think just talking to them like they're humans, and just like they're not your friend, but just showing that you care goes a long way.
Yeah, humans first, students second, musicians third.
But they always should practice.
Anything else, Christian?
That's all I've got. I like those answers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
Hey, Christian, congratulations on the new gig.
Oh, appreciate it, Evan. Thank you.
I forgot to tell
Excited.
you that. Yeah, you should.
It's okay.
It's great up there.
Yeah.
Have we announced it on the show yet?
No, we haven't.
Okay. So we'll do that probably either next episode or we'll probably have a wrap up. You know,
We'll talk about it at some point.
Absolutely, but yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, especially with your first point of the conducting, because especially for younger band directors who get so wrapped up in the pedagogy of it and like the problem solving, that you spend your entire concert cycle doing that, and you forget one, that those problems can be handled simultaneously with music making, but also just letting that part of the rehearsal come forward, so that way the kids can have fun with it.
Right. And I will also say, I just thought of another thing as I scan back on going into work other people's groups and my groups. When you're rehearsing and you have to kind of listen to the band like you're out in the audience. You got to make sure everything that needs to be heard is heard in terms of balance. And the problem with the way editors on some of these pieces, particularly grade 3s, 4s, is like you'll have a section where everything is so densely scored and everybody's marked double forte. But that doesn't work, right? We know this. So making sure you prioritize, what needs to be heard in any given moment and what's secondary, what's even third, fourth priority in terms of listening and detailing that. And that also obviously goes with knowing the piece 100%. So that goes hand in hand with that score study component. But just making sure you go out in the hall or you go listen out as far away in the band room as you can and close your eyes and make sure you're hearing the melody transparently. Make sure you're hearing exactly what you want to hear.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
That's good advice.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I actually stole AJ's question.
It's all good.
Yeah.
My Wi-Fi
quiet
is
this
good.
whole time, but
Sorry, AJ.
it's my bad.
Did
you have any?
I mean,
did you have anything
we know
else, AJ?
we're wrapping up, but I know that you're very active in the FMBC judging community, marching band community. I know that's a big part of your life as well.
Yep. Yep.
How do you balance, when do you like book a gig and you have to go and judge, or do you know that, your schedule ahead of time, like which one do you prioritize?
Well, basically, my whole fall is already booked every Saturday, pretty much from the first show to FMBC. So believe it or not, we're booked a year in advance now. Like we'll go to a show and they'll book us up for the year later. So all that stuff is determined a long time ago. So I do load myself up in the fall. Now I do enjoy traveling. I enjoy the airline miles. That's a nice component. I do sometimes feel strung out by doing so many, but I also feel as an adjudicator, it helps me be a better teacher because I remind myself what I'm listening for with my groups, right? Even though it's marching band, it's still music. It's the same concepts, And then I've been doing the FFCC stuff in the spring with the marching winds. So that's
is that new, or is that have you been? How long have you been doing that?
Several years now. Several years now.
Okay.
Yeah. I enjoy it. I often joke that I can make money off the activity I I love, which is kind of fun, and provide groups feedback, which is also awesome because I love to talk, as you know.
Yeah.
What? No.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
Makes you a perfect guest for the show.
That's right.
Absolutely. And you're doing last we were talking. Are you planning on doing any DCI judging soon?
Well, I don't want to jump the gun here, but I have been speaking with Wayne Dillon, and supposedly next year I may do some trial judging next summer. Yes.
Oh, fun.
So we'll see.
You see Marissa's group be extra harsh.
No comment. I also taught that group, remember, so I have to be very politically correct.
Yeah. I get it.
No, we could do a whole nother podcast of Evan Rogovin's drum corps.
I figured. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to get too much into that.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, next year.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah. By then, the podcast will have a different name because we can't call it the Florida Band Podcast anymore. But
all right, there you go.
we'll see. We'll see what we got. But yeah, so Evan, thanks so much for being on the show, dude.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, when we were originally making our list of people we wanted to bring in, I know Larry was on the short list, Andy was on the short list. I know Josh Boyd was on the short list. You've been on the short list, so it's been a real pleasure to bring you on. And Marissa and I have always enjoyed learning from you, and you've always been a great mentor in many ways to a lot of the younger band directors, especially recently as you've been able to kind of stick your head out.
Appreciate that.
Of getting comfortable with your own school. But yeah, man, this was a pleasure, and we'll definitely have you on soon. I think AJ's probably got a bunch of different questions, and I do too, about your marching band experience. And
Sweet.
And so yeah, so we'll make those plans. But yeah, so this has been the Florida Band Podcast. Thank you, Evan, for coming out, and we will catch you guys later.